So what do you do if the phase sets and rep prescription is 3 sets of 12, but the trainee can only do 4 chin-ups? So at this point, it becomes simple in the fact that obviously the client cannot do 12 reps of chin. He can only do 4. The goal is 12. So you can't, right? So there's no way around it. So the only thing you can do is, first, you're going to have to increase the frequency of chin-ups to at least twice a week so that the total rep volume in the week becomes a little bit more substantial. And then what you do is on a linear fashion, and you're gonna have to dedicate at least 12 weeks to this. Okay, so like 24 chin-up workouts. And over the course of these 24 chin-up workouts, you try to increase at least by 1 total rep per session. So if you're doing 3 sets of 4 on session 1, which is 12 reps total, session 2, aim for 13 reps total. So it might be 5, 4, and 4. Then session 3, 14 reps total. Then 15, then 16. Typically speaking, by striving to add only 1 total rep, you're not really going to affect the recovery curve too much. And a lot of people are going to be able to go a long way at increasing 1 rep total per workout for a substantial amount of time. And if you're able to do this over the course of 12 weeks, then you'll find yourself being able to eventually perform maybe 3 sets of 9, 3 sets of 10 using that model, which now, although it might not be 3 sets of 12, you're still much closer. Okay, so that's one easy, very simple way to bridge the gap to the 12 rep target if you're not there yet. Okay, there's no point at this time to do any type of crazy eccentric or isometric type of progression. Your athlete can already perform reps. All you want to do at that point is making sure that you improve their their work capacity by just getting them to do more and more and more and more reps. Okay, so that's the way to go. So what is my favorite accumulation phase intensifier technique? Personally, what I really like to use for accumulation phases, especially the second accumulation phase of a macro cycle, where I'm really trying to push volume to an even greater extent, is in the B series with the upper back, most specifically, because the upper back tends to be a little bit more slow twitch than most of your pressing movements. Is I'll use a agonist superset or a post exhaustion. So what happens is you might do your B1, which is, let's say, a flat dumbbell press. Then you take 60 seconds rest. Then I would have a B2 and a B3, where now I would put 2 upper back exercises back to back. So maybe something like B2 would be a lean 45-degree medium neutral grip pull down, and the B3 would be a seated row wide pronated grip. And then what happens is from B2 to B3, you only take 10 seconds rest in between. So let's say B1 flat dumbbell press, 3 sets of 10, 3 0 1 0, 60 seconds rest. B2, 3 sets of 10, 3 0 1 0, 10 seconds rest. B3, 3 sets of 10 or 3 sets of 12, depending on the exercise I select, 3 0 1 0, then 60 seconds rest. Okay, so I'm just using a superset technique for the upper back to try to drive a little bit more volume on these muscles. So now, understanding that on top of it, a lot of people tend to have a lot of discrepancy between those the muscle of the front of the torso and the muscle of the back. This might be a good way to try to balance things out. But because also of the nature of the muscles and the demand for way more movements to fully develop the upper back, it might be a good and a very useful tool to add in the accumulation phase to drive not only more volume to this session, but drive more volume to this muscle that can usually tolerate a little bit more. So that's something I like to do from time to time, agonist superset or post-exhaustion fashion, where the post-exhaustion you would have a multi-joint type movement first, followed by a single joint, like let's say a straight arm pull down or a pull over, where you're working the back but through only one joint. And in that case, that's when the second exercise, the reps would be a little bit higher to account for the fact you're going on a single joint exercise instead of a multi-joint, which generally requires a little bit less intensity, which is why the reps would be a little bit higher. So this is something like you should try it. It's really good, works very well to drive that volume up. When to use the rest pause technique. So the rest pause, it's a method or a technique that allows you to generate more volume at a given intensity. So what happens is you do a set of, let's say, 10 with a 10 RM, and then after the 10th rep, which should be a hard rep, you take a 10 to 15 second breather, and then you go and try to perform as many reps as you can with that exact same weight, which most people, like, it will vary anywhere from 2 to maybe 5 reps depending on the person. So that's the thing. It allows you to do more total reps with that specific load. So it's a good volume, a good accumulation phase technique. But that one, I like to use it more in the C series with like more single joint or more simplistic, like machine type exercises. That works quite well, like something like leg extension as a finisher, or even the pendulum squat. Pendulum squat is good because it's a comfortable machine. You can really focus on just like trashing your legs. So you might do, like, let's say 12 reps on the pendulum with a 12 RM, like a hard 12. And then once you're back on top, you turn the lock, you just chill for a little 10, 15 seconds, and then you unlock, and then you go and try to blast as many reps as you can. So very good way to improve total reps at still a high average weight, because it's not a drop set. It's not, like you're really maintaining that same weight. You're just taking that little breather to regenerate ATP, CP, so you're able to do a few more reps after. So it's very simple in its application, but it works really well. Could you perform neck exercises at the end of every session? So the answer is yes, definitely. Depending on the needs of the athlete or the client, depending on where in the training season, neck is a very important muscle for a lot of sports. So, and the neck tends to be able to handle a decent amount of frequency. Now, typically neck work I like to do on upper body days, but it doesn't mean that for certain phases at specific times you cannot do it after every session, so on upper and lower days, to just try to drive a little bit more frequency. Now, the thing that I would suggest, if you do train the neck like 4 times a week after every session, is make sure you train the neck through different modalities. So different types of contractions, different rep schemes, different pieces of equipment. You can do like isometric work on one day on a Swiss ball, so like neck support. You can use the head harness and use a low pulley for more dynamic work. You can use a 4-way neck machine. You could use the towel and do more like isokinetic type work with the partner giving you pressure. You can use the band and do more ballistic type work for your neck. So to me, as long as you're switching around a little bit the contraction types and or the implements and or rep ranges, I think there's no issue in training the neck like 4 times a week. You'll see like people recover pretty quick from that. Maybe not the first time. Like if you've never done it, if you've never done neck work, I don't think 4 times a week is smart. I would stick to twice a week, but eventually there's no issues to building it up. What do I suggest to put size onto the lower back? So for me, if you want to really improve or increase the strength potential of the posterior chain or increase the size of the erectors, I love using the tricep method here. So one of my favorite tri-set for this specific purpose would be a safety bar good morning. So a standing good morning with a safety bar, followed immediately by a snatch grip Romanian deadlift, and then followed immediately by a horizontal back extension. So I would do 8 reps, 5 sets of 8 on the good morning, 5 sets of 10 on the snatch grip Romanian deadlift, and 5 sets of 12 on the horizontal back extension. And then as I'm doing that tri-set, I would typically take about 3 minutes rest after, before I do it again. If you're stronger, if you're really much stronger, I would probably push it up all the way to 4 minutes just to make sure that you have full recovery. But that works really well. So what happens now is understanding that the erectors are a little bit more slow twitch. It allows you to use the tri-set technique very effectively. But the key is in exercise selection and the order at which you're positioning the exercises in your setup. So for example, the bottom range of the posterior chain that is trained with the good morning is by far in most people the weakest link, which is why you would train it first. So you don't want to train the strongest link first and then try to create any type of real loading at the end with an exercise that you're already typically weak with. So it's better off doing the opposite. So you follow basically the curve. You start with a bottom range exercise, then more of a mid-range exercise, then you finish with the end range exercise, which is what that sequence does. And what I like about the safety bar good morning is the comfort of it. Like, it's such a comfortable position with the padding and holding in front of you. The weight distribution is a little bit different than a regular barbell, but to me it just allows me to load more and focus a little bit more on that posterior chain without losing too much neural drive trying to have a proper grip, or avoiding the barbell to roll down the neck, especially since we're doing 8 reps. And so I like the safety bar for that. Now the snatch grip Romanian deadlift, what I like about it, on top of working the posterior chain, is that snatch grip position really allows you to use that mid back to maintain your scap retracted. It's kind of like a weaker position than the regular mid grip or clean grip Romanian deadlift that most do, and so it's just a little added benefits to the whole posterior chain. And then finally the horizontal back extension. At that point in time, as the third exercise of a tri-set, you want something a little bit more simplistic, something you don't really have to think about. You're pretty much set and locked into your machine, so all you have to do at this point is extend the torso back and forth, working on the end range. So to me, that sequence kind of follows the weakness to strongest, but also follows the difficulty level of the continuum. So it works really well. 5 sets, 8, 10, and 12. You can do like anywhere from 3 all the way up to 6 of these sessions in the mesocycle, and that should, like, assuming you're training hard on it, it should help you pack on some size.